Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be looking at a couple of the new campaign changes, and we're going to be looking just really quickly at a brief overview of the Dark Realms. So I've got two different videos that we're going to look at here. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Be sure to check out the rest of the content as well. We have dozens of legendary campaigns for Total War Warhammer 2, and we're going to be doing tons and tons of content for Total War Warhammer 3. Just to be clear, I cannot look at the primary sources right now. I cannot get into the game. I'm not a partner with CA, so I'm going to be looking at these videos secondhand through other content creators and commenting on them. CA has a couple of different tiers of sort of early access, one being full partnership, and which is usually for bigger channels that get a lot more views. Or you can just be verified, which is a smaller channel, which is what I'm classified as right now. So I will get early access at some point before release, but I think it's going to be, obviously later than these content creators. I don't know the exact date on that yet, but I will definitely let you know when I can go in there and look at it firsthand. So be sure to go by, check out the content for Zerkovich here. I might get, demonetized for this, but I do want to show you guys the content as much as possible. So I'm not trying to steal their thunder. Go by, check out their channel, check out their videos. If you like them, give them a like, give them a subscribe. But still come to me, still come hang out here. But do go check them out because we are going to be using their video. And then we're going to also use Great Book of Grudges as well. So go by, check him out. So we're going to be looking at him for Realms of Chaos, and we're not going to be watching the whole video on that one. And we're going to be looking at Zerkovich for this video. So again, I would do it myself. I would go into the client and give you guys a ton of early access gameplay. I just can't right now. So I'm going to have to do it secondhand, but I will give you the primary as soon as I can. And be sure to check out, I just released earlier today, by the time I release this, I will have released sort of my thoughts on Chaos the Demons Undivided. And I go through the different glories and basically the different kinds of things you can get with the glory to the different gods. So be sure to check that out. It's nice, detailed, talks about all of the different body augments you can get, all the different creatures you can get, and I'll also talk about what I think will be the best strategy based on the current information that I have and just kind of looking at the stats of the units and thinking about the mechanic. I give you some stuff that I think might help you out when you want to start your campaign if you want to do one with the Demons Undivided. But anyways, all that preamble out of the way, let's go ahead and watch this.
Changed in Total War Warhammer campaign.
So we'll be pausing and just talking about different aspects.
Videos,
I'll probably speed this up just a little bit here,
you definitely haven't heard of yet.
just so we can get through it faster.
Quick Deal is now a thing. This is a system over from Three Kingdoms. You'll now have a button at the bottom that says Quick Deal. When you click this, it'll show you all the factions that may be willing to do certain kinds of dealings with you. So here you can see I've got a deal chance in the green, so that means I could get that deal.
So I like this. I played a little bit of Three Kingdoms, but not a lot. But I like that it is making it very clear just how far away you are from getting something done. So if it's in the green, then that means that 100% they will accept it. So I think that anything that's over 0, they will accept. And if there's a surplus, like with this 3.0, you might be able to ask for a little bit of gold or something else in exchange. So you can kind of balance the scales and sort of figure out what you need to do to get a deal done. So I really like that. It's a lot more transparent. And then Quick Deal just lets you know, I guess, with everyone you can see, whether they'd be down for, trade agreements or whether they'd be okay with, all kinds of different military stuff. So it just makes it really quickly so you can see just how far off you are with each faction in terms of diplomacy. So I really like that. It's great. It's transparent.
So if I go ahead and do this, you can see
so you don't have to play guess and check with a bunch of different factions.
So it's an easy way to get these offers and to find out who you can deal with quick. There's also the same thing for trade agreements, military access, defensive alliances, military alliances, and confederation. So this is...
Now, Confederation, I noticed reading this that was kind of interesting. It says, ask the other faction to join your Confederation. If they're strong enough to accept your offer, they will be assimilated into your own. Their settlements will become yours, as may some of their armies. So I don't know exactly what that means, but in Warhammer 2, you get all of their armies, period, whenever you confederate. So I wonder if you have to have a lot of extra military strength over them to get their armies, or if it just says may because if they don't have any armies, then you don't get any, right? So I'm not quite sure what the may says. I don't know how Warhammer 2 is technically worded. I haven't read that tooltip in a long time, so I just know how it works. But I was kind of hoping they would nerf Confederation quite a bit and make it really, really hard for most factions to do it, because it feels like it's pretty much game over. If you're able to confederate, most of the time, if you're in a good position, it just puts you over the top. So I think it's a little too strong. Or, you know, it'd be nice if you could get like the legendary lords, because that's always fun if you confederate and get the enemy lords. But then maybe it just burned all of the towns, so you don't get the towns, you just get the lords and the armies. Or if it just destroyed all the armies and you only got the lords added to your roster, and maybe the towns, you could get them at a lower level, right? So like maybe it knocks all of the towns down to like tier 1 or tier 2, because that's one way to cheese the growth, especially on legendary. If you play legendary difficulty, is the AI gets way, way faster bonuses to growth than you most of the time in most provinces. So you can just like get away with, you know, just having like tier 1 or tier 2 units, maybe tier 3, and then you just confederate with somebody that has a tier 5 building, and a lot of times that's way faster than actually getting to tier 5 yourself, especially with a faction like Wood Elves or something like that, where it's really, really hard to grow normally because you only have the one, you know, the one town, the one tree in your province that can offer growth. Usually your growth number is very low as Wood Elves compared to like, you know, Skaven over, you know, 4 towns in a province or something like that. So it just feels kind of cheesy to me. Confederation just feels too strong, so I was really hoping they nerf it here, and it looks like maybe they did a little bit, but we'll see. At least it looks like it's really hard to get the Confederation, and they did nerf it throughout the life cycle of Warhammer 2. They made it much, much harder to get it. Pretty much the enemy faction has to be almost dead, right, where they have virtually no armies, and you have to be pretty strong, and then they'll look at the Confederation. So
it's just a really handy way to see where you stand with all the different factions around you, which can help you try to find those deals that you wouldn't think to maybe get, like this non-aggression pact with the Sons of the Mountain. I can't quite get it, but I am close, so just a little bit of money. If I throw that at them, that should put them in the green. There we go, 1.6 now.
It's not a little bit of money, bro. That's like $3,500. I mean,
that should keep them off my back. So a
it
nice
depends,
way
but
to help control
okay.
diplomacy a little bit more with quick deal.
Point taken, though.
Number 2, it's all about the ambushes. So you know how in an ambush the attacked army gets surrounded and is ultimately doomed? Well, now there's a glimmer of hope with the escape zone at the end of the ambush zone.
That's actually pretty cool. I like that. Now, I'm usually the one doing the ambushing. You know, I've played a lot of Skaven in my campaigns. It's one of my favorite factions. But I really like this idea. If the AI takes advantage of it, if they run for the escape zone in some situations, I mean, you can probably just line up around the escape zone, you know, unless you don't know where it is, which would be kind of troll. But you can just, like, line your units up around the escape zone and cut them off so they can't, you know, escape. But it is cool that that is, like, on the table, so it does constrict your stuff, especially if you're waiting on reinforcements. So that is something that's really strong, is if you ambush someone and you have reinforcements in the area, the reinforcements come out immediately. And not only are they ambushed, but then you have reinforcements coming in as well, which that can work even if they have another army around. So if they have 2 20 stacks sitting together, but then you ambush them with Skaven, or they walk into an ambush or whatever, you can get a 40 on 20, but their army doesn't get to reinforce. So it's even better than Lightning Strike if an ambush goes off, because Lightning Strike, you're forcing a 20 on 20. But with ambush, you could potentially have a 40 on 20. So this makes that a lot harder to pull off, because they might be able to get to the escape zone before those reinforcements come in. So I think it's a good idea. I don't think practically it's going to make a huge difference.
If you can manage to get your units to this zone, you will be able to withdraw them.
Unless they don't allow you to deploy around the zone.
This means you need to kind of think ahead and maybe try to stop them getting to that zone so you can do the maximum amount of damage on the ambush. So it adds a nice new layer to ambush battles where you can toss up.
So yeah, it's gonna. He didn't really position like super well for that. Okay, yeah, he's got some sitting there, dude. You need to go up and engage. Like, don't let them get that close. But I like that. I like that. That's cool. That adds a little bit more strategy.
It's a nice one. I think it adds a bit of depth to the ambush battle.
Yeah, I agree. Looking good.
Number 3. Are you tired of factions that you're not at war with trespassing and maybe even raiding you as well? Well, now there's a button to threaten trespassers, which tells them to get lost within 2 turns or you're going to break their nose, or words.
So you can send them a warning. If they fail to leave in 2 rounds, you can declare war without having to suffer treachery penalties for breaking non-aggression pacts and trade agreements. Now, I wonder if that includes, like, their defensive or military alliances. So, for example, if you have some dwarfs raiding your property or whatever and they don't like you, your vampire counts or something, and they're allied with Empire, if you declare war on the dwarfs after giving them that warning, will that still force you to go to war with the Empire? Probably. There are ways you can work around that diplomatically. This doesn't seem like that big of a deal because most of the time people that you have non-aggression pacts with won't raid you. But he does mention the Beastmen, and that is a case where that can happen, where they go non-aggro, but they just raid you because they have to have, you know, money or whatever. So it's okay. I just don't think it's going to come up a ton. So I think most people raiding you are probably prepping you for war anyways, right? They're kind of telling you, we're going to go to war with you soon.
To that effect, send a warning to the trespassing faction to leave your territory at once. If they fail to leave in 2 rounds or turns, you can declare war on them without suffering the treachery penalty.
I mean, maybe it scares them. Maybe some factions will run away.
So a nice addition, good for getting rid of those.
Probably hurts your diplomacy if you threaten them, but
now we can scare them off. New thing number 4. We're building on the war coordination here, so when you have an alliance with another faction, like I have here with Greyling, we will have some new options. The first change to this system is that there is now a currency that you'll have to use to get your allies to do things. So you see up the top here, allegiance. I have 90 points in this. I can use this to ask my allies to do things for me. These allegiance points can be earned through various missions, but they will accrue over time the longer you have a relationship with other factions. So what can these points be used for? Well, the same as in Warhammer 2, first of all, we can select a mutual enemy of me and my allies' faction and tell them to go and attack that army or settlement, just like in Warhammer 2 already. But now we can also ask our allies to defend our settlements. So if we're away from our lands, off doing something else, and we've got a nearby ally that doesn't seem to be up to much, well, you could go and ask them to put one of their armies near one of your settlements to help keep them safe. We can also request army, which means we can literally just ask our allies, hey, can I borrow your army for a bit? And they will say yes if you've got enough allegiance points, and you will then take control of their army. Pretty handy in certain situations, I'm sure. Number 5, kind of tying...
Okay, so I'll just talk about that. That looks awesome. I really like that idea where now the military alliances are much more useful, right? You can still send them after, you know, certain enemies, but a lot of times they just won't do it. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But now you can pay the currency, and presumably it's going to be a higher priority on their list of things to do. I really love that you can pay them to protect your property for you when you're not there. That's really awesome. I didn't see the protection cost, but if it's a reasonable cost, then you can go to war with their enemies if you make a military alliance with someone, and you can just keep killing their enemies, and presumably that's going to give you more of that alliance currency if you kill common enemies, and that allows you to press forward so they can, and you can use that currency to defend your backline to stop people from backdooring you. So that's really nice that you can do a favor for your allies, killing their enemies, and in exchange they'll do a favor for you and watch your territory for you. Again, there's probably limits on this. They're probably not going to run further than like 1 province away. I would imagine like you can't send them across the map to defend, you know, your little outlying settlement on the edge of civilization. But I imagine if they're pretty close by, then they'll probably do it. And you can take control yourself. It looked like you had 15 turns if you take control of their army. So that's a lot depending on the you know, the strength of that army. It probably costs a little bit more if it's a strong army, but you could just, you know, grab one of their generals, even if they have a small army, and just go park it in your garrison, and that might be enough to defend for 15 turns. That's a long time. So I love that mechanic. It's great, especially that you can borrow the army, and, you know, they're still getting the benefit. They're leveling up the lord. Presumably, I don't know how that works with money. If you win, do you get the money? You obviously don't get the experience. It's their lord that gets the experience, but you might get to keep the money. Maybe it's at a reduced rate or something. I'm not sure how that works. But that is cool that you can take control of them and basically force them, you know, to go do whatever you want them to do, to help you in a very specific fight or defend your property or whatever. Now, I wonder, if you have their army, you probably... Like, if you declare war, if you go attack something, it's probably in your name, not their name. So, and I'm assuming you can't, like, take off their items and put them on your units or whatever. So it would still be in your name. So you can't cheese your allies by forcing them to go to war with someone they're not at war with, so that you'll both be at war against the same enemy. Because we've been in those situations, right, where you're at war with someone who's very difficult. You have a military alliance, but your ally just does not want to get involved. So I don't think you can force them to fight by borrowing their army and like going to attack the enemy. I don't think so. That'd be like super cheesy if you could do that. So hopefully it doesn't allow for that. But otherwise, outside of some potential cheese scenarios, which hopefully they've thought of, it looks like a really good mechanic. I love it. Just to add more reason to have a military alliance, because, you know, in Warhammer 2, there's really not a reason to do military alliances unless you plan to confederate with the faction, right? Because you're actually putting yourself at risk. Because if you're military allied with two different factions that don't like each other and they go to war with each other, then it's going to force you to break a military alliance with somebody, either faction A or faction B. You have to break an alliance with somebody. And I've had that happen before, I'm sure everybody has, and it sucks because then you get the treachery penalty, and it wasn't even your fault, right? So you almost never want to go into defensive or higher alliances unless you want to confederate, because they're not going to help you out most of the time anyways, right? So that's why I really, really like this. It encourages you to take that risk because it is risky. You could get dragged into a war as a military alliance that you don't want to be involved in. So I like there's a much bigger payoff. That's really cool.
Seemed like it deserved its own slot, but this is another part of military allegiance. It's building outposts at ally cities. Now what the hell does an outpost do for me, I hear you cry? Well, it will allow you to recruit units from that faction. So playing as the Demons of Chaos here with my allied recruitment, I can get Norse units, skinwolves, berserkers into my army. I wouldn't have access to these units normally, but with the allegiance and the outpost, I do. So whichever faction you're playing as and whichever factions you ally with, you will be able to recruit their units with outposts.
This is amazing. This is one of the best features I've seen in the game, and I predicted that they might do this when we looked at the early access to Cathay. I saw something that indicated maybe this might be the case, and I speculated about it, and it's here. So this is awesome. It looks like it's fairly balanced, but oh man, I'm so excited about this. This is going to add so much extra diversity. Again, fantastic reason to get military alliances, to take that risk. This is just amazing. So it looks like you have to level up your outpost. How much gold was it? I don't know how so I'm assuming he doesn't go into this here, but this looks like it's an underway or like an undercity kind of thing. So I don't know, like if you're Skaven and you have undercity, can you have an undercity and an outpost, or is it going to be a building within the undercity? I'm not sure, but it looks like that type of mechanic where it's something that happens on the other side. So it's not saying, I don't think, how much gold it is. But presumably you have to pay money to build this up to tier 1, 2, or 3. Let me see. Provides allied recruitment of a selection of units from the faction's global recruitment. So that means it doesn't even... What? That's really strong. I don't know. So that means that anywhere in there, like, they don't have to have a tier 5 unit or tier 5 building or whatever for you to potentially hire tier 4 or tier 5 units. So you could put an outpost in like a tier 1 town and get higher tier units if you upgrade your outpost. So right here it says it's from the global recruitment pool, not the local recruitment pool. So you could get anything they can hire across their entire empire. You could hire it right there. You get allied recruitment cost outside friendly territory, minus 50%. So I'm not sure what that means. It looks like you should only be able to hire this from friendly territories, I think. Unless you can hire them globally, which that might be a little on the strong side. I thought you would have to be in that local area. That would make sense with an outpost. There's no way you can do it globally, I don't think. There's just something about the wording here I'm not understanding.
It's building outposts at ally cities. Now what the hell does an outpost do for me, I hear you cry? Well, it will allow you to recruit units from that faction. So playing as the Demons of Chaos here, with my allied recruitment, I can get...
So it says outpost level 3, presumably in this town. So when you upgrade the outpost, you can get certain units from that level. Now, that faction has to have a building somewhere that allows you to recruit that unit, I believe. So, I know that I'm pretty sure these werewolves are tier 3. So if you didn't have this outpost at tier 3, I'm pretty sure you would not be able to hire those werewolves, even if they have the werewolves themselves. So you're going to have to pay money to upgrade those. Now, I don't know if you're going to have growth for the outpost or how much money it costs, or maybe it costs a certain amount of leadership points or whatever, 100 points to upgrade the outpost. Like maybe you have to get a really, really strong alliance with them. It looks like it costs leadership points or whatever, allied points to hire certain units. So instead of gold, you pay allied currency, and you still have to pay for the unit upkeep wise. But I like that you can do that with kind of the allied currency there. So the stronger your alliance, you probably use that to build the outpost and use that to recruit units. So that's actually really cool. I like that. And just like I predicted in the Cathay, I'm really glad that they have it's a limited pool, so you can't get every unit that they have, but you can get some key tactical units that are cool, like the Skin Wolves or like Berserkers. And you can only have up to 4 allied units in your army. Now, I don't know if that's just from this alliance. There's a tab here, so I'm assuming you could maybe look at other alliances. I don't know. Maybe you just put an outpost. The fact that it has this tab has me kind of wondering here, because maybe if you just have an outpost anywhere on the property of somebody, then you could use the global recruitment pool. I don't know. I'm going to have to explore that more firsthand, because I don't know why there would be a tab here if you can only hire it from that one space, right? Because you shouldn't be able to tab into different factions. So maybe if you have an outpost level 3, then you can globally recruit from that outpost anywhere. Because it does say when it's not in allied territory, you get like a discount or something to it, or it costs 50% less. So maybe you can global them in from anywhere, as long as you have an outpost somewhere. So maybe it is dependent on where the outpost is placed, what you can recruit, but then you can globally recruit it anywhere. That'd be interesting. But either way, I like the mechanic. I like it a lot because it's limited to 4. So you can't have an entire army of one of your allies' stuff, but you can just sprinkle in some tactical units that are pretty cool. And that just makes sense, and you can't hire a bunch of them, it looks like. You get like 2. So I really like that. That's going to add for so much extra diversity between different factions. It's just amazing. This just really, really opens up the game and makes diplomacy so much more important, because now you're just thinking, man, I really want to be allied with those guys, even if they're kind of a weaker, like, military faction, or they don't have a lot of cool resources or whatever. I might want them just to get their cool unit, right? I might want to, get some of those nice units that they have that would fit in perfectly with the kind of army that I'm creating here. So it's just going to be just tons and tons of opportunities. That's probably the most exciting thing. One of the most exciting things I've seen, period, like in the campaign.
Skin units, Skin Wolves, Berserkers into my army. I wouldn't have access to these units normally, but with the Allegiance and the Outpost, I do. So whichever faction you're playing as and whichever factions you ally with, you will be able to recruit their units with Outposts. You want your vampire counts to have Jezzails? Well, now maybe you can. Pretty powerful stuff for mixing around factions. On to number 6.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it looks like it's balanced pretty well. If you can global them in anywhere, that seems a bit on the strong side. I think you should have to be in the area, or if you want to global it, it should cost a lot. But I really like that you can only have 4, and it said allied, so I assume that means all of your allies. So you can only have 4 non-main faction units in their period. So you could have like 1 thing from vampire counts, 1 thing from dwarves, 1 thing from this other place if you want to, but only 4 total. I like it. Grand Slam S++.
Pretty big change to how reinforcements work, because no longer will reinforcing armies arrive right at the start of the battle. They will now have to wait for a timer of usually 1 to 2 minutes, and as this tooltip mentions, it's related to the Lord's levels. Your Lord compared to the enemy Lord, and the difference between those levels will determine the time and position of where the army and reinforcements come in. So another really nice change, I think.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's okay, but it feels like you're going to be able to snowball really hard off of that. I mean, I guess it depends on your faction and the difficulty level and things like that, but typically the player has a much higher level lord, usually if you're playing all right, it's very unusual for the AI to have higher level lords than a player. So your lords are almost always going to be higher, so I think that means you'd be advantaged in this situation. So you could go around and rampage, a lot of these other factions with lower level lords, and it's going to delay all of their reinforcements, usually from coming out of garrisons, but also sometimes with reinforcing armies. So it feels like the player's going to be majorly advantaged.
For this area of battles and reinforcements, you do need to be a bit more careful if you have a smaller starting army to the enemy, because they may...
However, that will stop some tactical ways you can deal with reinforcements, though, because right now you know exactly where the reinforcements are coming in, so you could basically have the reinforcements pincer you, but then you could just start fighting the reinforcements from the edge as they're coming in before the main army can get over there to stop you, which I don't consider cheese, but maybe people could consider it cheesy. So that's going to make that a lot harder to do. Now you're just going to have to rush the main army and kill them before the reinforcements come in, which is probably, similarly powerful, right? It's not as good as killing people before they get their feet set, like right when they walk in, but it still buys you enough time to fight one army at a time if you want to. So
small army before your reinforcements arrive, so you do have to plan a little bit more. Can also potentially help you win battles where you are the outnumbered one and the enemy's got reinforcements. If they're coming in waves, you have a bit more chance of taking them both out if you play well. On to number 7. This is a pretty big one that I think a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. It was in 3 Kingdoms and even some older Total Wars, I think. Being able to trade settlements. A really nice feature that just helps you clean up your regions.
So we saw this... Well, I'll let him finish, then I'll talk about it.
As very often you'll want to try and get full provinces rather than broken ones. So for example, I've got Wengchang here and Terracotta Graveyard, these two, but I'd like to get the full province and try to get Pomai as well. So if I had the money or maybe the regions to trade to this faction, I could ask them to give me Pomai. In this case they won't, because it's their only settlement. They've only got a couple of gates otherwise, so they wouldn't actually have any proper settlements if they gave me this, so they're not going to. But if they had more lands, I could probably get it off them if I had enough money, or if I had another region to trade them. Or alternatively, I could offer to give them the 2 settlements that I have in exchange for money, or maybe a trade agreement, or maybe asking them to attack another faction. We can now use land and settlements as a bargaining tool, basically. Very nice to have this feature now in Total War Warhammer.
So if that's balanced, I really like that, because sometimes it's just really annoying when an ally or just any other faction just takes that one town and you really don't want to go to war with them, but they have this town in your property. They don't want to go to war with you, but they just wanted that town. Now that you can maybe buy it off of them, or if you're just taking over property, especially in an area that's yellow or maybe red, and you really don't want to own the property, but you want some value out of taking it, then maybe you can trade it or sell it. So based on what I saw in the Cathay video, it looks like the person you're trying to trade it to or sell it to, they have to be within one province. So you can't just sell it to somebody on the other end of the universe that's never going to use it. They have to have some presence established close by, either in the same locale or nearby to do a trade. So I think that'll make it a little more balanced. So hopefully it's not too cheesy, but if there's a way to do that and it's fair, if the price is like pretty steep, I think it's a good mechanic.
Number 8 is a pretty unique one, especially good for the Demons of Chaos and their customizable Lord, because if you've got a Lord that you really love, perhaps you've got them some neat items and traits, well now you will be...
This one's kind of just whatever. It allows you to save it and go fight them in custom battles. It's kind of whatever.
Are you tired of allocating skill points to characters maybe you don't care too much about? Well, now there is an auto-assigned skill.
Are you tired of playing a strategy game that's asking you to use strategy? Well, go ahead and click this. I mean, maybe there are some people that want to do that, but it's like, trust the AI, to save you a bunch of time, and it's like, click on some things.
Button. Check this box and skill points will be automatically assigned for you, saving you a job at the end of every turn. So it's a really nice time saver. You can turn it on whenever you want. And as an example, this Miao Ying has been almost entirely auto skill point leveled up. I think I put 1 point in Earthblood and 1 point in Fervent, but the rest has been all done by the AI. It's made pretty good selections. It's taken sure aim, which increases my missile power, and I've got a whole bunch of missile units in my army. You can slightly see down here, so it's a good pick. He's also taken missile mirror.
Maybe I'm being elitist here, but
some really good choices. I've got 2 other characters over here that have both been completely auto skilled up, and the AI's decisions look pretty good. They all seem to be mostly useful things that they've taken, so seems like a really handy feature.
It's not for my audience, probably, right? People who watch me, for legendary stuff and, probably to try their own higher difficulty games and really want to get into the strategy of it. This is obviously the antithesis of that. But I guess that's good. I mean, why not? Just have an option. It's easy. You just click a button and the AI takes over the leveling. I guess for newer players or people that just like fighting but they don't want to mess with campaign management. I mean, more options is not a bad thing.
Quite high level and you don't really care where the skill points go anymore because you've got everything you want. Well, now you can just hit auto assign and the AI will do the rest for you, just saving you a job that can be a little bit tedious when you've got kind of 10 or 15 lords and heroes.
I mean, maybe with heroes, but it's like, what the hell difficulty are you playing on where you have 10 lords? Like, that's gotta be, unless they got rid of supply lines, which I see the button right there in the middle, supply lines is still there, which if you don't know, if you play on higher difficulty levels, the supply lines, basically for each additional lord that you have, it costs every army 15% additional upkeep per turn. So if you have 2 lords, then it's 30% extra cost on everything. I think I don't remember if it's beyond the first or if it includes the first one, but it's a massive, massive tax. So it's like, if you have like 4 armies, like late game, you've probably won the game. Like, you're super balling on Legendary. Like, it's really, really hard to afford that many armies, especially like professional armies that, you know, have high tier units in them. So I don't know what he's playing where you have 10 armies, but anyways, again, it's an option. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, so I'm never going to do that. But for people who just, you know, want to do the battles and just want to fly through the turns as fast as possible, sure.
So a really nice little extra feature. There's also an auto building construction button, which is slightly less exciting, but also nice to have. And number 10 is all to do with besieging and attrition, because the way attrition works has now been changed. At the moment, you see I just attacked this settlement, everything's in full health. And in Warhammer 2, I would have to wait for these turns over here, 10 turns, before the enemy army would take any attrition. But now in Warhammer 3, enemy armies will take attrition on every single turn, being completely depleted at the end of that 10 turns. So here, after 1 turn, you can see these units are now a little bit depleted. They've all lost about 1/10 of their health, making it slightly easier for me to take that army out. But if we wait 1 more turn, they're going to lose a little bit more again, maybe another 10th. So now you can see these units are starting to get pretty beaten up, and we can keep doing this as far as we want. And for the attacked army, you have to ask yourself the question, do I sally out and attack and try to do as much damage to that enemy army as possible, knowing that I'm not going to win, but at least I won't just get worn down with attrition? Or do you stay in there, take the attrition, and maybe wait for another army to come and help you? Because at least you'll still have your defensive position inside the settlement if you stay there. And of course, attackers have to be aware of this too. Could you fight and win, or should you encircle and maybe try to make it easier so your army doesn't take too much damage by wearing these units down? But do you have the time to do that? Because if you do, and then guess what? You end the turn, but the enemy gets saved by a reinforcement army, then you're going to have to fall back, and you've missed your opportunity to take that settlement. This might feel like a bit of a controversial change, maybe, because it's a pretty big one, but I think it is for the better.
It's not big. It's not big. Okay, so that's cool. I like that you can, you know, cause some attrition to armies, but realistically, if you're playing on higher difficulties especially, you're still not going to do that. You're going to attack it on the first turn. Because every turn that your army stands there doing nothing, you're wasting gold. Like, if you have a 4,000 gold army, you're basically paying 4,000 gold, just throwing it down the toilet every turn that you sit there. So you should not even waste your time with a town where you're going to have to siege it. There might be some very, very special circumstances where that's not true. And if you need to build like siege towers or something, which again, you should not be trying to do that if you can at all help it. But there might be some places where you do need to build siege towers, and at least they're taking some attrition while you're building those siege towers now. So I think it's a good change. Like, sieging is already borderline worthless. What they need to do is like dramatically reduce the upkeep on your army while you're sieging. Or something like that. That might make it, then you're losing the opportunity cost of not doing something else on the map while you're sieging, but at least you're not like wasting as much money every turn to siege. So if it's like a super high level garrison with like a 20 stack sitting in there, you know, it's like a tier 5 faction capital or something like that, and you just don't have a very strong army, maybe you can do that, or like they're going to take some attrition, you want them to sally out on you next turn. So it's good. I like it, but I don't think it's that big of a change, especially on higher difficulty levels, because again, most people are not going to do it. They're going to just attack on the first turn because you don't want to waste time sitting there when you can just win the fight anyways. But I like it. It just makes it a little bit more useful for those, you know, corner case situations, or maybe on lower difficulties where the optimization is, you know, more forgiving. I like it. It's good.
And one last new feature, which is going to be pretty handy for new players or for people just trying to learn the game in general. When you win or lose a battle, at the end, you will be able to rematch and do it again if you want. So if you lost, but you figure that maybe there's a better way you could have done it, well, now you can just try it again and learn from your mistake.
I really hope that's disabled on Legendary. I think it probably will be. But one thing that I really like about the highest difficulties on a lot of games these days is that there are no takesies backsies. You deal with the consequences. Right now, sometimes that could be too brutal. But I think especially on Legendary, they should not allow it. They already allow some stuff like that on Legendary. Like you could just manually save it before you go into a fight. And then you could just go back to your save. So this is a good option for lower difficulty levels for people who are just going to be save scumming fights anyways and just keep trying until they win the fight. But on Legendary, I really like that it auto saves and there are no manual saves. There's no takesies backsies. If you lose the fight, you lose the fight and you deal with it. Either you have to start a new campaign or you just have to start rebuilding and get busted up. I like that there are consequences. There's, more emotion, more at stake. I like that they don't have the balance of power. I like that you can't pause it. I like the challenge of that stuff. And that's something that I think even if you play on very hard, you might still have balance of power and you might have manual saves. I'm not 100%. That's something people don't talk about on Legendary very much, it's a lot more unforgiving if you're losing fights and it just doesn't give you the information with balance of power. And you can't save scum it and things like that. Unless there's probably some way to cheese it, but you're not supposed to be able to save scum it. You're supposed to deal with the consequences. So anyways, I really like all those changes. Those are fantastic. Let's hop over really quick to the Realms of Chaos. And I could just make that a separate video, but I just want to throw it all in here just so I'm not doing too many videos. Overload. And frankly, I'm not going to have a ton to say about this other one because it doesn't have a lot of the really nitty-gritty details. Like they can't show you the fights. And how those work yet. I guess they're NDA'd on that. But pretty much for this one, I'm just going to be... I'll silence him, and then I'll just kind of fast forward and just kind of pause and show you some things and just kind of narrate my way through this. But again, like I said, the previous guy was Zerkovich, so go check that out. And then this guy's Great Book of Grudges, so go check him out if you're interested. But definitely come back and watch my content if you want. I don't think either one of them does it on Legendary, from what I understand. So if you do like the Legendary and kind of the really deeper strategy side of it, with no cheese, come check it out. I think I am one of the few content creators that does that. I'm sure there are others, but there aren't that many that have both of those qualities, like really anti-cheese, but still do high-level campaigns. Okay, so basically, from what I understand and what I saw from the comments, he doesn't mention this in the video, but these rifts show up, I'm assuming on turn 10, that's what it is right now for him, and then every 30 turns after that, from what I understand, they will show up, and you can take these rifts, you can do different things with these rifts. So you can enter the domain of some of the gods. So you have the 4 gods, and I'll show you those domains and just kind of talk you through it. You can enter those 4 domains. You can close the rift, so if you're afraid that other people are going to come in and invade you, which they could, you can close that rift. Just if you want a more secure location, that's interesting. Or you can traverse the rift. Now, that's something he talks about at the end of the video, but I love that mechanic. I really, really love it because I'll just skip to that since I'm talking about it. Let's see if he has it on the map here. Yes. So these rifts pop up all over the map. Now, I don't know if they're the same place every time or if they're random where they pop up, but they seem pretty spread across the map. And you can basically pay 1,000 gold and jump from one rift to any of the other rifts. And he wasn't really able to think of situations where you would do that other than just kind of like goofy stuff for fun. There's a lot of tactical reasons why you would do this. Number one is confederation, or just like diplomacy with somebody. So some factions might be pretty far apart. It depends on the campaigns, but I know like Skaven, for example, in Warhammer 2 are just like in the 4 corners of the world. And if you want to go try to start diplomacy with someone like Ikitclaw, if you're Queek, you have to like run. I would just have to run a hero, for like 20 turns all the way over to go spot someone, from that faction so you could open diplomacy with them. Well, now you can just, I I don't know if you have to send a lord or if you can send a hero. I'm assuming it's probably a lord through the rift, but you can just pay 1,000 gold, warp them right over close to where you want to be, start diplomacy with them. So, you know, Confederation is going to be challenging. Hopefully it is, like I said, but just being able to start that diplomacy sometimes can be very nice. And some factions have special diplomatic stuff they can do. So Zinch, I don't know all the details, but, you know, he has special diplomacy stuff. High Elves have special diplomacy stuff. Certain lords, like Tretch, or not Tretch, the assassin Skaven has those plots that he can do, but you have to see someone diplomatically to be able to do those plots. Snitch, there we go. So I really like that. And then also there are just certain regions that are just really good regions to fight in, right? So you might have kind of a crap region early, and maybe if you can get over to a different region, it would be a lot better for you. Especially some of these chaos type of factions. Then moving to different locales could potentially be really strong. Or like, you know, maybe there's just a region that has lots of good resources. Maybe it's got gold. Maybe it's got a lot of ports. Maybe you just want to go over there and fight. Maybe, I mean, you could do it just for fun as well. Maybe you just want a different look on the campaign map and you just want to try to go somewhere else and fight. Obviously, usually you don't want to split your faction up, but there are a lot of really good reasons why you might want to take those rifts to go to different places. So I love that, because that was one huge problem. Or if you're just conquering the world, right? If you already have everything over here taken, and you just want to zoom over here and start the domination over here with one of your lords while this other lord's dominating down here, you can kind of split your armies up and cover a lot more ground a lot faster. Because that was one thing, it was just so tedious in Warhammer 2 if you want to take over the whole map, especially going from like the new world to the old world, like having to sail across the ocean for 10 turns, you know, it's just taken forever. So I was hoping they would have some kind of global movement, and they kind of teased that a little bit with the Wood Elves and their ability to warp to different trees every 10 turns. And I was like, please have that in Warhammer 3 as either some kind of chaos thing, or maybe it's a globe and you can sail from one side to the other. But this is just awesome. I like this. So it's limited. It's only every 30 turns. I think you can do it. It costs a little bit of gold, but that's fantastic. I'm just about as excited for this as I am for the Chaos Realms, honestly, because it just opens up so much extra strategic diversity. So, really good. Awesome for those military that, like we just talked about a second ago, these different military options as well. Maybe there's a faction on the other side of the map that you really think you can military alliance with, set up an outpost and get some cool units, right? Maybe you want some Dark Elf units, but they're on the other side of the world. You can maybe port over there, you know, and start doing some favors for Malekith and get some Dark Elf units. So I think that's super cool. Okay, the other options though, you can go into the different chaos domains. So I'll just show you a couple of those here really quickly. And again, he doesn't say that much that I can't explain here. He doesn't go into a ton of details about everything. Also, I don't just want to, you know, copy everything that he's doing in his video. If you like this, if you want to see what he's saying, you know, go check out his content. But I'm just kind of giving you the TLDR also here, so it's not 20 minutes for this content. But whenever you come over, each one has their own theme and different things that you have to try to do to get to their god. So in the middle, there's a citadel right here, but you have to meet certain conditions before you can do this quest battle to basically kill the leader of that, or like this major guardian of that faction, and what presumably is a difficult quest battle. And then once you kill all 4 of those, then you're able to unlock something to get you to the end game, to some kind of final battle. He didn't say anything about it. Apparently that's NDA'd, but something is imprisoned, and you need these 4 souls in order to unimprison this thing, presumably some really powerful god or demon or something. But anyways, to get in there, there are different things you have to do in different realms. So in the Khorne realm, you just fight a bunch of stuff. You just kill any units that are here, and you will gain this bar. And once this bar fills up all the way with 30,000, now I don't know if that's literally you have to kill 30,000 units, or if each unit is worth multiple points, but you have to kill a lot of stuff. And this bar sort of fills up over time. There are these just rampaging armies over here, and I think they're mixed armies. It doesn't just have to be Khorne units you're facing. They say they have recruited units from all over the world, So you should get some cool mixed army battles, and I really like that. There wasn't a reason to really fight those mercenary armies. Sometimes you would. I guess with the pirate vampires, Vampire Coast, you had to fight some of these like mercenary armies, and that was kind of cool. So I'm glad that they're pulling that mechanic in a little bit more to where you face, armies that are mixed from all sorts of different units around the world. So that's cool, but basically you just kill a bunch of stuff. You can grab special weapons here as well. So these things can give you some powerful weapons you can equip. And I think you can keep them in the mortal realms. So if you show up here early, you can grab one of those weapons and just like peace out if you want. Now, I think the armies are more likely to come for you if you have one of those weapons. The Chaos armies might come for you, but you can grab an early weapon, on turn 10 presumably. You could just roll up in here. With some factions, go grab a sweet weapon and peace out if you want to. So I think it's kind of RNG what the weapon's going to be, but you can go to these places and grab it. And if you stay in here, you start to take attrition. Apparently you can bypass the attrition just by going into like encamp stance or raiding stance or whatever. Anything that makes you immune to attrition. You can globally recruit in here if you want to. But you will start getting negative chaos traits the longer you stay in here. So it'll hurt your leadership or do some other bad things to your army. You can get rid of those chaos traits by getting the detection unit that detects like Skaven undercities. But that building is tier 3, and usually, from what I remember, it's kind of expensive. It's like a 4,000 gold building. So it's a little goofy if you don't already have a Skaven problem to go out of your way to build that to get rid of some of these negative chaos traits. So just keep that in mind, that it's not free to go in here early to try to do these things, to get this weapon, or with Slaanesh, you can get different bonuses. You do get to fight early, and that is cool. You can level up your lords. But also keep in mind that when your main army is here, they're not back home. So if you're at war with anybody and they start attacking your town, you might get screwed, by being here. Now, I think you can leave whenever you want, although I'm not sure what the mechanic is to piece out of that. But I think there is a mechanic where you can leave. I just can't quite remember exactly what it is. But you can go home early if you need to. You will not be able, I'm pretty sure you won't be able to re-enter for like 30 turns though. So after you meet these requirements, you do all this fighting, then you get to go back or do this quest battle. I think you have to do it all in one sitting, although I'm not 100%. So you might be able to do like 100,000 credit here and then leave and then come back and finish it later. But I think you have to do it in one go. And this right here, he didn't mention this, but this says 15 turns. So I think that might mean you only have 15 turns in here to get it done. Because it's turn 11, or no, it's turn 32 right now. So maybe that means it's coming back in 15 turns. I'm not 100% about that. So you might only be able to stay in here for 15, or this might just mean that the portal's coming back in 15 turns. But either way, that's how that works. And there can be other lords from the main map that roll up in here, and you might have to fight them. So there could be other random, lords from around the world that show up to try to do these quest battles, and you could fight them. So he mentions that Kairos Fate Weaver shows up several times here, and you can just go fight him. And if you kill him in this one, in the Blood God, then you get credit for kills. So you can just kill other faction people as well. Now, presumably, you do that, you're declaring war on them. So that is pretty cool. I kind of like that you can directly interact. So supposedly they're going to be trying to get these things too, and I don't know if they can actually literally win the game, or if there's a way for you to stop it if they set loose this god, or whatever this genie in a bottle is you're trying to free. But I think that would be really cool if you could actually literally lose the game if they do it faster than you are. So you would have to show up and like fight them and knock them out of this so that they don't win. I really like that idea. I know with the Vortex campaign, I don't think I actually got all the way through one of the Vortex campaigns. Everybody just always requested Mortal Empires. But I got to where I was basically going to win the race. But I believe even if the enemy beats you, even if they have more resources than you, then you could still do some quest battle and stop them from winning the game. But I always like that idea in the Civilization series that you literally can lose. like not through combat, but just them achieving objectives before you. So I really, really hope that you can lose the campaign and that the AI is smart and they try to get these souls as much as possible. But I also like the fact that you can go there and interact with them. If you know which soul they need, if they like make that public knowledge, like, hey, this guy has 3 souls already, he's going for the 4th one, he's going for Zinch, then you can go to Zinch and fight him to stop him from doing it if you want to. So I really like that you can interact with them to stop them from achieving their objective. And I assume the AI is probably going to do that to you. They better be programmed to do that. Now, hopefully they don't go overboard with this and like 15 factions jump in that portal once you've got your 3rd soul. I mean, I guess that'd be kind of cool, like a test of strength, but hopefully they all just don't gang up on you like super hardcore like that, but we'll see. But I really like the idea that you can interact with the enemies and that they are actively trying to do those things. Okay, so this is just him showing that you can get some of those weapons. I don't remember if he shows one of the weapons or not. I don't think he shows one of the weapons. Okay. Now he goes over and talks about Slaanesh. Now, Slaanesh is interesting in that there are these 6 different sort of circles of pleasure. And all you have to do with Slaanesh is you just step in these portals and it warps you from place to place to the inner realm over and over again. Now, each time you warp, I believe an army will spawn that you might have to fight, but it will also tempt you. See, Kairos is there again. But it will also tempt you with potential rewards if you go here, right? So, the Circle of Avidity. So you can take a bribe from him and leave the realm. So you could, with this one, you can gain 15,000 treasury and a bunch of items if you just want to leave. Now, you cannot go back in for the 30 turns or whatever. It looks like 13 before this is going to respawn. So I don't believe you're going to be able to go back in during that time period. But some of these rewards look pretty good. Like that one's okay. So this is a negative trait that he got from staying in here for too long. And there are different traits depending on the different realms that you stay in. But this one, you have -5 control in a local province, which is public order. And then it looks like you personally have -10 leadership. Which a lot of lords have a ton of leadership, so that's not a huge deal, but those traits can definitely add up. Now this one's crazy looking. The Circle of Gluttony. So plus 40,000 40,000 treasury, and you get 100 growth in all provinces and casualty replenishment rate 100% for 15 turns. That is crazy if you take that back. So he did say some of it is RNG, some of it might be dependent on which circle you're in. So the Circle of Gluttony might be a certain circle, and presumably as you get deeper and deeper, it takes more and more turns to go down there. Then the buffs would get bigger. So there's probably some RNG to it, but I would imagine the buffs get bigger the deeper you go. And it looks like this took him a few more turns to get here. So, you know, I heard people in the comments saying, oh, everyone's just going to be going in here fishing for Slaanesh buffs. And it's like, yeah, you might. Like, these buffs could be good, but remember, like, when you're here, you're not doing anything on the campaign map. Right? As far as, like, with your main army. You're not conquering other properties. You are leveling up your lords a little bit, but your towns are going to be vulnerable too, right? Like if you're at war with other people, they can just attack your towns while you're in here doing your thing. So, you know, you have to really be far enough ahead or be, in a peaceful situation where you can go and afford to do this. So yes, you could get the really crazy, plus 40,000 gold and lots of growth and replenishment early. But you could also just get some stuff that you don't necessarily need. And remember that you get those traits, those negative traits, and you require a tier 3 building that's very annoying and out of the way to be able to cure those traits. And I don't know if it cures them instantly. If it's something like the Bretonians, I believe there's a certain % chance it will remove a trait, like a 25% chance if you're in a property. So then you might have to have your lord just sit there for X number of turns to have a chance to cure those traits. And so again, that's wasting your time. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do these things. I think they're cool, but I'm saying that in my mind, at least right now, it looks like it's decently balanced. Just because there is a trade-off. But some of these are really good. I mean, if you just pop up and go through the first gate and you're only in here for like 3 turns, and you get that huge bonus, the 40,000, gold and all that other stuff, yeah, it's worth it. But, if you're in here for 7 turns and you get 2 bad traits and you don't get anything that great, and someone declares war on you and sacks one of your minor settlements, then all of a sudden it's not worth it. So this one gives you plus 20 diplomatic relations with all factions for 20 turns, and you get like perfect control in all of your properties. So there's some pretty cool stuff. If you do want to go for one of them early, I think this is probably the best one, or Corn. With Corn, you can just beeline straight for one of those weapons. Again, I don't know what all the weapons are, what all the choices are, but if you get a badass weapon, I think you get to take it back to the Mortal Realms with you. So if you are playing a faction that, likes to go around and fight a ton early, especially with really good duelist lords that can go beat up enemy lords, then it's probably good. Now, I don't know if it has negative traits like the Sword of Cain or something like that. I'm not sure, because again, I don't have a copy of the game yet. But that is another possibility. If you could go grab a badass weapon and then just start dominating everyone in the, Mortal Realms, that might be worth it as well. But those are 2 places I would definitely look at if you want to go early. Nurgle looks really cool, but this one was pretty straightforward from what I understand. It's basically, there are just armies sitting around waiting for you. Now, I don't know if these are all Nurgle armies. It doesn't have the banner, like that multicolored banner, like it does in the Corn Realms, that signals that it's an army made of multiple different factions. So this might just be all Nurgle units, I don't know. But they say that basically when you're in here, you take attrition the entire time immediately, and you have to go find a place that gives you the cure. So I think it's this green place here, and apparently it can spawn in different locations, but you have to go find the cure in order to stop taking attrition. Now, they did say that you can just go into encamp stance or, raiding stance or whatever. You get the gift from the Plague Father. Okay. So anyways, and then once you get that, then once you touch that place, then you can go to this Plague Mansion right there and fight the Plague Father. So that one's pretty simple. Just go to the place, fight armies, take attrition, go to the place, touch it, then go to the mansion, do the fight. So that's probably the most straightforward one. And from what I understand, there's no bonuses. There's nothing cool that you can get in Nurgle. It's just basically really straightforward. So that's probably the easiest one, but I would not go there. Again, there's no reason unless you're trying to end the game. I don't think there's a reason to do it. Unless maybe you get some kind of buff if you get the soul. Again, I don't know those details. Now, this one looks like the most creative and interesting one, but also potentially one of the most frustrating ones, depending on who you are. And I know we're almost out of time. I really want to close this out in under an hour. But basically, it's a portal puzzle. You just have to go step on these different portals. It takes you to different places. You can step in these light wells, and it will give you a hint, or it will tell you which portal you're supposed to go in. And you can also fight armies, and when you win a battle against the army, one of your options right down here is reveal teleport sigil. So it will tell you where you should go next with your teleport. So you can either fight armies or step on certain things. Tells you where to teleport, but if you get confused, it could be pretty annoying. And you can get some buffs, I guess, by stepping on those things as well. So you could get the reveal sigil, or you can take these buffs. So full replenishment or free global recruitment, basically. Just hire as many units as you want. So this one seems pretty easy. I don't know, maybe the armies are hard, but the fact that you can get a global recruitment that basically says your army just got wiped out, but just replenish it right now. Obviously, it would cost a lot of gold, but that is kind of cool. So you have some interesting buffs going on there, but again, there's no... it doesn't appear like there's anything you can do to take back to the Mortal Realms with you. So, to be continued. We'll have to see the quest battles and what's going on there. But, my instinct early on is, there might be some factions or strategies where you could go and, like I said, kind of roll the dice on Slaanesh, see if you get a good buff. Or you could go for Khorne and just go grab an awesome weapon if you're a faction that wants to do a lot of fighting early on. But again, there's an opportunity cost for that. You have to be able to win the fights. You're not advancing your board state. You're risking getting negative traits. So there's that. So I don't know. It'll just depend on the faction. We'll just have to see sort of what's going on. But it looks very interesting. I like the idea of all these trade-offs, and just as much, I like the idea of being able to teleport around using the rifts at different places to make the campaign management a lot more manageable, especially once they do the Mortal Empires map. They better keep these rifts around. I really hope so that you could teleport over to Lustria from over here or wherever, especially if you want to go for the total domination, kill everything in the world. This is going to make that much, much more palatable, so you don't have to spend a million turns sailing around the ocean and messing around with, like, where you can land, where's the beach, how much movement are you going to lose, all that annoying crap. The sea stuff is just really, really obnoxious. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check out these other content creators. Still come to me, but if you like their content, and you've already watched everything I've done, then that's a good place to go as well. So thanks, have a good day, and I'll see you next time.